Thank you, Mr. CEO. Morning, councillors, afternoon, councillors and mayor and gallery. This item here relates to seeking recommendation for the council for the mayor to pass the following motion at the upcoming. Again, hear me now. To pass the following motion at the upcoming LGAQ conference to be held in October. And the motion is that the LGAQ calls on the state and federal governments to provide essentially three items here. One, funding for local governments to do their own regional hydrogen assessments. Funding to incentivise the use and uptake of hydrogen fuel across the state, and also loan facilities for the private sector to invest in hydrogen infrastructure that's required to grow the green hydrogen economy in Queensland over the coming decade. Any questions?
Questions or comments for Ben? No, all good. Thanks, Ben. Second one has been withdrawn. We then move on to the gift of 2 blocks of land in Bundaberg South. Who's presenting that one? Seeing you're here, Christine, that'd be wonderful. Thanks.
Report is for a gift of land for 1 and 3 Ford Street. As councillors will be aware, the landowner approached council to offer their land to council for part of the Washpool Creek project that's being conducted. Some due diligence has been looked on the property, and some notable comments is that the land is freehold, it's zoned limited development, it is impacted by the flood hazard overlay, and there are notations for vegetation management. If council is minded to gift that property or receive that gift of property, it's recommended that council accept the gift and that the CEO be authorised to enter into a deed of gift with the landowner and attend to all things necessary to complete the transfer of the land to council.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? No? Thank you. Okay, Simon, financial report.
Financial summary as at 2nd of August, obviously early on in the year, so quite difficult to identify any trends. But just a few notes from what we're seeing so far. Recurrent revenue is slightly lower than what we expected. That's in the fees and charges space, but we'll get on to that. Our recurrent expenditure is also tracking low on the budget, and that's across both materials and services and employee costs. In terms of cash, at the reporting date, we had a balance of 138 million. That's higher than what we had as an opening balance due to the fact that the financials from last year haven't been finalised. And just a note on rates, the rates have been issued. At the time that we struck the levy, we had $10.8 million in prepayments, which was 1.1 million more than what we had at the same time last year. So prepayments continue to improve. Any questions on the financial report? Okay, capital budget. As outlined at the consultation meeting, councillors, this budget revision seeks to carry forward the project expenditure from last year into this year in order to finalise the capital program. It is limited to capital reprovisions. It doesn't have an impact on the operating result for this financial year. It does have a minor impact on the long-term financial forecast in terms of depreciation and interest revenue. So the budget itself saw an increase of $18.7 million in project expenditure to a total program this year of $107.8 million, and capital revenue increased by $1.4 million as part of that reprovision process. The most significant project reprovisions were Fleet, $6.6 million, Central Park, $2.3 million, Bundaberg Rec Precinct, $2.4 million, and Balleden, waterway naturalisation, 1.3 million. The revenue policy and revenue statement are also attached and required to be recertified as part of that budget amendment. Any questions on the budget amendment? Yes.
Councillor Honour.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In regard to the 18 some million that is being re-provisioned, I'm just wanting to know about the money that was parked as in abeyance for the Gingin Rail Trail to match the 9.5 million that was brought forward by the state government in a rail trail specific grant. Is that included in the re-provision here on this project?
No, it's not. It wasn't in the original budget, Councillor Honour, and it's not has been part of the re-provision budget either. The re-provision budget only brings forward funds from last year. That project wasn't in last year's budget either, so there's been no new spend added to the budget as part of this process.
Is there any new drawdowns intended on our loan?
No, the loan profiles remain the same as what was in the original budget as part of this re-provision. There's been no increase or amendment to the loan profile over the 10-year period.
Thanks, Simon. Any other questions? No, all good, thank you. Nicole, Christine.
Item G1 is in relation to the sale of 15 Hull Street, Buxton. This is freehold property that council owns, and council has previously resolved to sell the lot as it is surplus to council's needs. The lot was previously offered for sale by auction, but that auction was not successful and the lot was passed in. Council's now received an offer to purchase that lot, and the offer presented to council is for market value. It's suggested that council apply the exception contained in section 2361AI of the local government regulation to the disposal of that lot, and that the CEO be authorised to enter into a contract with the buyer and attend to all items required to finalise that sale.
Thanks, Christine. Questions or comments? No, all good. And you're going to do G3, noting G2, the sale of that has fallen through.
Yes. G3 is in relation to council policy review. As councillors are aware, council reviews its policies regularly to ensure that they are best practice or suit compliance. 3 policies were identified that required updating, and that was the hardship policy, the procurement policy and the buy local policy. In the hardship policy, updates have been made to wording in the intent, and section 256 of that policy, which is set out in the report for councillors. The procurement policy was amended to add information and terms in accordance with the Local Government Act. Section 7 was an inclusion of how to make a complaint, and associated documents and controls have been updated. The buy local policy has been amended to include a new section 7, which is about providing an exclusion for professional services in procurement activities from the scope of this policy, subject to review and approval by the procurement board. Concerns were raised about the advantage to local firms who do not have the requisite skills level or experience from other firms in neighbouring communities, given the greater experience in completing the desired projects. It's proposed that the existing 3 policies are rescinded, and that council adopt the 3 new policies which are attached to the report.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? No, all good, thank you. And then move into the specialised supplier arrangements, and welcome Adam, who's acting for Stuart, who's on annual leave.
Afternoon, councillors.
Afternoon, Adam.
Item number 81 is around renewal of the specialised supplier arrangement for Kubota parts and equipment in repairs. The council owns about
owns about 25 items of Kubota plant in our fleet at the moment, and Fleet Services has a policy that we only use genuine parts. At the moment, Format Machinery is the authorised parts and service repair agent in Bundaberg. So we're looking at renewing a specialised supplier arrangement with Format Machinery for those Kubota plant repairs and equipment. So that's done without first inviting written tenders under section 235B of the local government regulation. The proposed arrangement is to be made for 3 years. Any questions?
Just to reiterate that is still a local company supplying those items. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Item H2 is very similar. It's for the renewal of a specialised supplier arrangement in regard to Massey Ferguson parts and repairs. Council has 7 pieces of plant which are Massey Ferguson brand within our fleet. Seng's Sales and Service are the authorised parts and service and repair agent in the Bundaberg area for Massey Ferguson. So under section 235B of the local government regulations, it's proposed to enter into an arrangement with Seng's Sales and Service for the supply of that Massey Ferguson parts and repair without first inviting written tenders. And the period of that arrangement would be 3 years. Any questions? Item H3 is another renewal of a specialised supplier arrangement for Howard parts and repairs. So Council has 21 plant items of the Howard brand. NQAS Power Shed are the authorised dealer for Howard brand in Bundaberg. So the proposal is that we enter into a specialised supplier arrangement without first inviting written tenders pursuant to section 235B of the local government regs with NQAS Power Shed for the supply of those parts and repairs. And that period would be for 3 years as well. Any questions?
All good. You do the water allocation transfer?
So item J1 is regarding...
So Councillor Honour's declared a conflict. Just wait.
Do I need to read it out, Mr. CEO?
Well, I think save it for the meeting if you like.
Next
Councillor.
meeting, thank you.
Okay, item J1 is around the temporary transfer of water allocation, and the water allocation be WA 7190 on CPAP 6975. So Council's been approached by several farmers requesting if Council had any excess water available for purchase. Council's reviewed our needs, and for medium priority water there is 220 megalitres available for temporary transfer. It's recommended that Council endorse that the 220 megalitres of water allocation be made available for auction for temporary transfer in the 21-22 water year, and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to do all things necessary to enable that auction to occur and facilitate the temporary transfer. Any questions?
Councillor Haberman. I'll probably defer to Christine to answer that question if I could.
Councillor Haberman, the idea with going to an auction, so it'll be through rural co-water brokers, and the idea of using it by an auction and splitting it up into the lots as we've said there, so there's 4 lots of 50 megalitres and 1 lot of 20 megalitres. It'll allow the open and transparent process so that all farmers can equally make application for the water through that third-party provider of being Rural Co-Water.
And potentially maximise the return to the council by using that process as well. Councillor Haberlin?
So talking to Rural Co-Water, that is the usual process that Sunwater takes. So any allocations that Sunwater usually have, they have it sold through Rural Co under a auction type process. Given that they're a government agency, we're similar, which is why we're suggesting that it's a similar process.
Councillor, someone else have a question on that one? No? Okay, thanks, Adam. Next item is K1. The Mayor's indicated he's going to vacate the chamber and check whether he has a conflict prior to next week's meeting. And Wayne's still out for this one as well. Yeah, he's got a conflict that he's vacating. Michael, welcome.
Everyone. This report relates to a request that we received from a developer to modify an existing Bundaberg Open for Development 2016 infrastructure agreement. The proposal relates to the Bagara Views estate, which was first granted approval in 2009 for 122 lots in 9 stages and has been gradually developed since that time. It's gone through a number of iterations, a number of changes. I've included the details of some of those, but for council's note, the last stage of the development completed was signed. The survey plan was signed in May of this year. In line with the incentives that were being offered by council at the time, the developer entered into a Bundaberg Open for Development infrastructure agreement on or about the 12th of September 2017 for stages 6 and 7 of that estate, which were at that time undeveloped. The infrastructure agreement was entered into and effectively so the developer applied for the incentives that were granted, and the 2 stages that were incentivised under that were completed and received their discounts. You note though, during the course of the life of the agreement, which was originally due to expire on the 19th of July 2018, the developer applied and was granted 2 extensions to the agreement, and lastly received a further extension as part of the council's blanket extension of sort of unfulfilled agreements as part of our COVID recovery package for the development industry. The applicant, you'll see in the attached letter to the report, is now seeking to amend the existing infrastructure agreement, even though all the obligations under that agreement have been satisfied by both parties. And effectively they are seeking to include the balance of the development, so the remainder, so the whole of stage 8 and the balance of stage 9. And they want to include that in the agreement so that they can retrospectively be subject to the discounts. So councillors, and the reasons for their request are outlined in the report and included in the attachment. After considering the request, councillors, the recommendation is to decline this request, primarily on the grounds that the Bundaberg Open for Development 2016 incentive scheme closed over 2 years ago for applications, and development that was incentivised under that has been rolling out ever since. The rules of that scheme made it clear that any development that wanted to be incentivised must be applied for before that closing date of 28th of June, and clearly this is much later than that. as I said, the agreement is effectively come to an end in May this year. All the obligations of the agreement on both parties have been satisfied, and it would be unusual for, I guess, this retrospective change to then bring that agreement back to life in circumstances that weren't considered, particularly at the time that the council entered into the agreement. Whilst it's lawful to do, and you could do it through a deed of variation to the agreement, apart from those reasons that were in conflict with the rules of the original incentives program, I'd just point out that there remains a large stock of residential subdivisions that are still incentivised under the extension to 2022 that are yet to be taken up, and as per the latest data available from the state, there still remains a large stock of land available for immediate development and bringing to the market should developers wish to do so. So there's no need to incentivise this to make up for some shortfall in available land. So for those reasons, councillors, my recommendation is that the council does not agree to the requested change.
Thanks, Michael. Questions or comments? Councillor McPhee.
Michael, I read this Thursday afternoon, so I apologise if this question's answered in here, but I don't think it is. Do you know a dollar figure of the incentives that the developer was able to take advantage of already in their earlier stages of this development application?
Councillor, I don't have that figure to hand, but I could certainly find that out and circulate that after this meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Councillor Haberman.
Councillor, I can't speak for the developer and what his intentions are. I mean, that's purely a matter for him. I do note that the infrastructure charges applying to this development, though, were applied at the time of the approval, which was in 2009, so at rates that are much lower than our current infrastructure charges resolution. So even without discount, the charges on this development are still lower than as if you were getting approved today.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Any other comments or questions? Nope. Okay. Now, the next one we need to get Councillor Honour back for. Leave the Mayor out. Yes, Councillor Honour. Oh. No problem, thank you. Welcome. All right.
Good
Thanks, Sarah.
afternoon, councillors. Item L1 deals with the development application for a reconfiguration of a lot subdivision for one lot into two lots, as well as a material change of use for a veterinary service located at Waring Road, Bargara. The material change of use component of the proposed development seeks to construct a new building over two stages near the southeastern corner of the site, adjacent to Hughes Road and Waring Road intersection. The reconfiguration of a lot component of the proposed development seeks to excise the above described vet clinic into a single allotment whilst retaining the balance of the land in a second parcel. The proposal also includes dedication of New Road, which creates a new intersection on the western side of Hughes Road. The site is located within the emerging community zone with an area of 4.59 hectares. Councillors, as you'd be aware, Council has recently commenced the local area master planning for the land within this zone, bounded by Watson's Road, Hughes Road, Windermere Road and Seaview Road. consultation for this local area planning has recently commenced. The commencement of this local area planning is important to note when considering the key issues described in the report before you. I'll just briefly touch on three of the key issues within the report, being inconsistency with planning intent, need and infrastructure provision. Other key issues you will have read in detail within the report. As detailed in the report, the proposal is inconsistent with the planning intent for the emerging community zone. Throughout the planning scheme, it describes the greenfield areas located within this zone as having growth and development to occur in accordance with local area master planning undertaken by council. The zoning of the site as emerging community is, in its simplest terms, preserving land for future need of urban expansion and protection of this land for it to be developed in the future in line with master planning. As just discussed, Council's strategic planning team have commenced this work, but it is yet to be completed. The structure planning undertaken by strategic planning typically involves extensive consultation with landowners, community and government stakeholders to determine the preferred land use patterns and infrastructure provision. As you will have noted within the report, the applicant has submitted a plan which depicts conceptual ultimate layouts for the site. This conceptual plan shows numerous lots surrounding the site as being for future commercial development. The applicant's conceptual plan is not a local structure plan, as referenced within the planning scheme. These conceptual plans have not been through the process of public consultation to ensure that the land is developed in the best interest of the community. These concept plans, in providing an expansion to the local activity centre located on the corner of Rifle Range Road and Hughes Road, makes assumptions that additional non-residential land is required for the increasing population in the area, which is not supported by an economic need or impact assessment. Given council has not completed the structure planning of the surrounding area and how that area will progress, it is considered that the proposal is inconsistent and may prejudice this master planning of the site and the surrounding area, which is currently underway. A second key consideration within the report before you is overriding planning and economic need. As the proposal is for a business use, when considering planning need, officers must consider the existing and future hierarchy of activity centres, as vet clinics are an anticipated use within all centre zones, the industry zone and the specialised centre zone. This is not a use generally anticipated in an emerging community zone or in a low density residential zone. As detailed in the report, the vet service comprises land of 3,000 square metres and a total floor area of approximately 940 square metres. The supporting concept plans from the applicant proposes to expand the existing local activity centre on the corner of Hughes Road and Rifle Range Road, providing an indicative land area for future commercial activities of more than 12 hectares. For comparison, the existing nominated district activity centre within Bargara comprises a total land area of 5.5 hectares, which includes a vacant portion of 1.65 hectares. The information provided by the applicant best represents a development as being part of a district activity centre, as indicated by the size and scale of the development and the expansion of centre activities. Approval of commercial activities outside of a nominated activity centre creates unnecessary and unanticipated competition with existing and approved activity centres in the locality. Where development creates such unnecessary competition, it can create an oversupply of commercial land and drive commercial development away from the areas nominated within the centre's hierarchy. Furthermore, such development can result in planned activity centres not being fully realised due to investment out of these commercial centres and could mean that other coastal towns, such as Burnett Heads and Elliott Heads, would be unable to provide sufficient services for their communities. Furthermore, the creation of an additional district activity centre in Bargara also could undermine the role and function of the Bundaberg CBD as a primary urban area and principal activity centre for the region. The information provided by the applicant is considered insufficient to determine that there is a gap in available land for commercial uses. Councillors, you'll also note within the report another key issue to note relates to infrastructure provision, with infrastructure including sewer, water, roads, drainage and parks and open space. Assessment of all these items are within the report, and I'll just touch on the pertinent points. The subject site is located outside of Council's priority infrastructure area, which identifies the area prioritised for trunk infrastructure to service existing and assume future demand up to 2031. Currently, Council does not have a strategy for the provision of reticulated sewer network in the coastal urban district outside of the identified priority infrastructure area. Whilst it is acknowledged that there is existing sewer infrastructure proximate to the site, there is no capacity for Council's sewerage network to receive additional wastewater resulting from the proposal. And if the subject site were to be connected to the sewerage network, the development could displace wastewater services for urban development within the priority infrastructure area. In relation to transport, the proposal identifies the location of a new T intersection to be constructed in order to service the site. However, the location of the access is based on best fit for the proposed development, rather than a solution that would form part of a broader transport strategy for the locality. It should also be noted that the location and design of this proposed T intersection restricts right turns from the new road onto Hughes Road, which requires all southbound traffic to undertake a U-turn at the Watsons and Hughes Road roundabout. Additionally, the proposed access solution results in part of Waring Road becoming redundant and proposes no further connectivity between the proposed road and the Waring Road Reserve. Councillors, for all the reasons just discussed, it is clear within the report before you that the proposal is premature. Furthermore, this type of development in this zone has the potential to prejudice the orderly development of the surrounding locality. For these reasons, officers have recommended the development for refusal.
Thanks, Sarah. Comments and questions? Councillor McPhee.
Are we able to get a copy of the submission? There was only one submission. It was against, I'm assuming. Yeah. Are we able to get a copy of that?
Yes, we'll be able to provide that.
Councillor Haberman.
The application was lodged the 15th of September 2000. Have any previous applications been made prior to that for this project but have been refused or withdrawn or whatever?
Through the Chair, no applications had been received by Council and no applications have been refused.
If it helps, Councillor Haberman, I attended a pre-lodgement meeting in the term of the last council with the applicants who at that stage were investigating various site options for the location of the new vet clinic, but there was no recommendation or conclusion drawn out of that meeting. Other questions? Councillor Haberman.
So the only matter raised in that submission was about the access of land via Waring Road. There was no other matters raised in that submission.
No other questions? No? All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Michael. We'll get Councillors Dempsey and Honour back. Christine, welcome back.
Item 01 is in regard to proposed renewal of a lease to Creative Regions Limited. Creative Regions presently lease part of the state-owned reserve park. And they were under a lease from 2018 until 2021, so that lease is due to expire in the coming months, and the tenant has approached council and they wish to renew their lease for a further term of 3 years. It's proposed that that lease will be for less than market value, but it won't be at the community rate that we have, and the rent will increase by 3% each year. And it's proposed that council apply the exception contained in section 2361B2, given that it's a disposal of a lease to a community organisation, and that the CEO be authorised to enter into the lease with Creative Regions.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? Councillor McPhee.
Just wondering why it's not at the community rate? It's a community organisation.
Oh, yep.
And the definition of a community organisation includes like the traditional community sporting groups and not-for-profit. So I guess it allows council to reduce the rent but still derive some rental payment from that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Anything else on that one? No. We'll go on to the next one.
This is for the lease to Bundaberg fruit and veggie growers. They're proposing to lease a small space down at the Ag Tech Hub. It's only 10 metres squared. The lease that they're looking at entering into is for an initial term of 1 year with 2 one-year options. Again, this is a similar type situation where they're a not-for-profit organisation, so they are receiving rent at a concessional rate, and the rent is proposed to increase by 2% or CPI, whichever is the higher. And it's proposed that the terms of this new lease will be on council standard terms lease, and for that reason, it's recommended that council apply the exception contained in section 2361B2, given that they're a community organisation, and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to enter into a lease with Bundaberg Fruit and Veggie Growers Cooperative Limited for part of the Bargara Administration Centre.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? Good.
The next item is 03, which is a lease renewal for the Bundaberg Meals on Wheels Incorporated. Councils will recall that this matter was brought before council in June this year about renewing their lease. At that time, the resolution provided that it was a 10-year lease. However, the group has advised council that they're looking at obtaining some grants, and for that reason they need a longer term on their lease. So the resolution that's proposed that council make is rescind the part of the resolution that was previously made in June, and then change that so that it's a 10-year lease plus the 10-year option to the Meals on Wheels.
Thanks, Christine. Comments or questions? No. Thank you. What have we got next? No, a couple of late ones. Who's doing those? Peter, you going to do those? Yep. couple of late items, councillors, because of some specialised supplier arrangements we need to put in place for the Milby Festival.
Good afternoon. The first one is a specialised supplier arrangement with Harbour Agency for the supply or for potential supply of entertainment acts for the 2021 Milby Festival. The Milby Festival runs this year from the 29th of October to the 7th of November. Tourism and Events seeks a decision by Council to enter into an arrangement with the Harbour Agency to engage specialist entertainment acts, including Alex Lloyd and Ash Grunwald, who are solely represented by the Harbour Agency. The nature of their specialised services and representation makes it unreasonable to seek competitive quotations. Costs for these engagements are in accordance with Council's budget, and the recommendation is that Council engage the Harbour Agency for the provision of entertainment acts for the Milby Festival without first seeking written quotations pursuant to Section 235B of the Local Government Act.
Thanks, Peter. Comments or questions? Councillor McPhee.
I don't know, sorry Peter, whether
That's
you'll
okay.
be able to answer this question, but I was just wondering what the significance of Alex Lloyd and Ash Grunwald was, why we had to have those particular artists.
I believe they identify as First Nations, which is relevant to the Milby Festival. Yeah.
I did a bit of research, I wondered if that was why, and I couldn't see anything around that. The next item we're looking at was very obvious, but
Yep.
on these two I couldn't see anything around that on their portfolios and so forth, but thank you.
Okay, that's all right. The second one is also a specialised supplier arrangement, this time with the Bella Management Group for entertainment acts for the 2021 Milby Festival. So again, Tourism and Events are seeking a decision by Council to enter into an arrangement with the Bella Management Group to engage a specialist entertainment act, Mitch Tambo, who is solely represented by the Bella Management Group. The nature of their specialised services and representation makes it unreasonable to seek competitive quotations. Costs are within or in accordance with Council's budget, and again the recommendation is that Council engage the Bella Management Group for the provision of an entertainment act for the 2021 Milby Festival without first seeking written quotations pursuant to Section 235B of the Local Government Act.
Thanks, Peter. Comments or questions? No? All good? Thank you very much. No more late ones? No? We've got one item then in confidential to do with relief from waste collection charges. So we'll finish the open